Gulf of Mexico oil spill is creating dead zones. Dolphins and sharks are showing up in surprisingly shallow water just off the Florida coast. Mullets, crabs, rays, and small fish gather by the thousands off an Alabama pier. Birds covered in oil are crawling deep into marshes, never to be seen again. Marine scientists studying the effects of the BP disaster are seeing some strange and very troubling phenomena. Fish and other wildlife are fleeing the oil out in the Gulf and gathering in cleaner waters along the coast. But that is not the hopeful sign it might appear to be, researchers say. The animals' presence close to shore means their usual habitat is badly polluted, and the crowding could result in mass die-offs as fish run out of oxygen. Also, the animals could easily get devoured by predators. A parallel would be, why are the wildlife running to the edge of a forest on fire? There will be a lot of fish, sharks, turtles. Trying to get out of this water they detect is not suitable, said a Duke University marine biologist. The nearly 2-month-old oil spill has created an environmental catastrophe unparalleled in U.S. history, as tens and tens of millions of gallons of oil have spewed into the Gulf of Mexico ecosystem. Scientists are seeing some unusual things as they try to understand the effects on thousands of species of marine life. Day by day, scientists in boats tally up dead birds, sea turtles, and other animals. But so far, the toll is surprisingly small given the scope of the disaster. The latest figures show that at least 783 birds, 353 turtles, and 41 mammals have died, numbers that pale in comparison to what happened after the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska in 1989, when 250,000 birds and 2,800 otters are believed to have died. Researchers say there are several reasons for the relatively small death toll. The vast nature of the spill means scientists are able to locate only a small percentage or fraction of the dead animals. Many will never be found after sinking to the bottom of the sea or getting scavenged by other marine life, and large numbers of birds are meeting their deaths deep in the Louisiana marshes, where they seek refuge from the onslaught of oil. That is their understanding of how to protect themselves, said Doug Zimmer, spokesman for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Dead zone periods. For nearly 4 hours on Monday, a 3-person crew of Greenpeace cruised past delicate islands and mangrove-dotted inlets in a bay off southern Louisiana. They saw dolphins by the dozen frolicking in the oily sheen, and oil-tinged pelicans feeding their young. I think part of the reason why we're not seeing more yet is that the impacts of this crisis are really just beginning, said a Greenpeace marine biologist. As for the fish, locals are seeing large schools hanging around piers where fishing has been banned. Apparently, the fish feel safer now, but they are not being disturbed by fishermen. Also, researchers believe fish are swimming closer to shore because the water is cleaner and more abundant in oxygen. Further out in the Gulf, researchers say, the spill is not only tainting the water with oil, but also depleting oxygen levels. A similar scenario occurs during dead zone periods, the time during summer months when oxygen becomes so depleted that fish race toward shore in large numbers. Sometimes so many fish gather close to the shoreline off Mobile that locals rush to the beach with tubs and nets to reap the harvest. But this latest shore migration could prove deadly. First, more oil could eventually wash ashore and overwhelm the fish. They could also become trapped between the oil slick and the beach, leading to increased competition for oxygen in the water and causing them to die as they run out of air. Their ability to avoid it may be limited in the long term, especially if in nearshore refuges they are crowded in close to shore and oil continues to come in. At some point they'll get trapped. That could lead to mass die-offs. The fish could also fall victim to predators such as sharks and seabirds. Already there have been increased shark sightings in shallow waters along the Gulf Coast. The counting of dead wildlife in the Gulf is more than an academic exercise. The deaths will help determine how much BP pays in damages. And in a related event, far from Gulf, a oil spill 5 decades old. Big oil spills are no longer news in this vast tropical land. In Nigeria, the Niger Delta, where the wealth underground is out of all proportion with the poverty on the surface, has endured the equivalent of the Exxon Valdez spill every year for 50 years by some estimates. The oil pours out nearly every week, and many swamps are long since lifeless. Perhaps no place on earth has been as battered by oil, experts say, leaving residents here astonished at the non-stop attention paid to the gusher half a world away in the Gulf of Mexico. Only a few weeks ago, they say, a burst pipe belonging to Royal Dutch Shell in the mangroves was finally shut off after flowing for 2 months. Now, nothing living moves in a black and brown world once teeming with shrimp and crab. The oil spews from rusted and aging pipes, unchecked by what analysts say is ineffectual or collusive regulation, and aided by deficient maintenance and sabotage. In the face of this black tide is an infrequent protest. Soldiers guarding an Exxon Mobil site beat women who were demonstrating last month, according to witnesses, but mostly resentful resignation. And yes, so in other words, perhaps the world's oil addiction is getting out of control, becoming uncontrolled. And all these disasters or catastrophes are showing the world what is wrong with these things. Yes, it's time. Everything that must change for the better, and quickly or rapidly. And everything is numbered, and everything is connected. And these are physical manifestations of revelation. Daniel chapter 12. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars for ever and ever. And yes, there are many kinds or different types of signs happening daily all around the world and increasing in frequency. And these are more signs.